All right, so we're diving into something pretty interesting today, huh? Getting into the art world.
Yeah.
And not just the art itself, but the ideas behind it. You know, like where do you draw the line between like taking inspiration and just straight up
Copying. Yeah.
riching something up? We've got some excerpts here all about originality and art. And honestly, some of this stuff is like really thought provoking. Have you ever, I don't know, looked at a painting or a sculpture
Oh, for sure.
and had that feeling of like, wait a minute, haven't I seen this before?
Absolutely. All the time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pin down what original even means sometimes.
Right. Like, where's the starting point?
Exactly. And our source material here, there's this one example. It jumps right into the deep end.
Oh, yeah.
An artist makes this artwork,
Okay.
and it's basically identical to like a photograph.
Wow.
But get this, the artist swears they've never even seen the photo.
Oh, come on.
Total coincidence, they claim. How do you even process that?
I mean, that's a head scratcher, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah.
even if you believe them,
Right.
you're still left with, two pieces of art that are essentially the same.
Yeah.
It really makes, oh, hey, I think our listeners got something to say.
Yeah, hi, it's David. Yes, I propose this topic, and I would like to talk about art in general, and if art is really art or is just a ripoff, because I think we have to consider what art is in life. Don't you think so?
Hey, David, thanks for chiming in. That's a huge question.
Seriously, like what is art, and is anything truly original?
If we connect that to the bigger picture, art movements build on each other.
Yeah, you see echoes of styles, techniques.
What's fascinating here is that we have to consider context.
Right. Where does inspiration end and plagiarism begin?
This raises an important question about copyright law, too.
Yeah, so let's unpack this.
Hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, but I would like to talk about just art in general. I mean, when we can say one piece is art or is not. I mean, who's the judge for that? Who is deciding who is art or not? You know what I mean? Who is telling the truth?
That is such a good question, David.
It's almost like asking what makes something human.
Yeah. Is there like some objective checklist we can run art through?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's all subjective.
Okay, so like no one person gets to decide for everyone.
Right, because who decides who's the decider?
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah, like you were saying before, David, art movements build on each other.
Totally.
And you see echoes of styles and techniques.
It's true. Like think about Renaissance art.
Oh, yeah.
All those sculptures and paintings, they were super inspired by like,
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I like to ask you, what do you think about Van Gogh art? I mean, now people are paying loads and loads of money for a piece of
Hey,
art.
David, that's a
of
great
Van Gogh.
question.
yeah, Van Gogh. What do we think?
What's fascinating here is his context.
Okay, let's unpack this.
His art wasn't really appreciated in his lifetime.
Right. He barely. Oh, go for
Well,
it.
not only it wasn't appreciated, but he almost he was starving. I mean, he sold about one or two pieces of his paintings, and now people are paying crazy money for the same pictures. People are crazy. So who is deciding who is art or not?
David, you're touching on something really important.
Seriously, it's like he was struggling, unappreciated.
But now his work fetches insane prices.
Like what changed?
Right, so the question is, who decides?
Is it about the art itself or something else?
I think it's both and more.
Okay, let's unpack this.
There's definitely this romantic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the thing is that to be a good artist, or well, you can be an artist, but if you want to be a good artist nowadays.
David, you're bringing up a key point.
What's fascinating here is
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
I wanted to say that if you want to be a good artist, you have to be a good seller, a salesperson. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're going to die. You're going to starve because you are not going to sell anything of your art. So apart from being an artist, you have to be a good salesperson, whatever. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work.
You're saying being a good artist isn't enough.
right, that you have to be a good salesperson.
Otherwise, no one will ever see your work.
What's fascinating here is the definition of success.
Okay, unpack that.
Is it about artistic merit or about sales?
Or is there a connection that we are missing?
Now that's a question, isn't it?
And I think it ties into our originality scene too.
Absolutely.
Do you think Van Gogh was original, David?
I mean, he definitely had his own unique style.
Absolutely.
And he was inspired by other artists.
Oh, for sure.
Like Japanese printmaking, you can totally see it.
Okay, so was he ripping them off?
No way.
Right.
He took those influences and made them his own.
Back to our listener.
Yeah,
What's up?
probably the first question we should do, we should ask ourselves, if we really need art in this life. Do we really need art? Is it art necessary at all?
Whoa, David, that's a huge question.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that's almost like asking, what is the meaning of life?
Yeah. I mean, do we need art to survive?
What's fascinating here is how different cultures answer that question.
Okay, let's unpack this.
For some societies, art is totally woven into daily life.
Like, it's not some separate thing. It's just there.
Right, like think about indigenous cultures.
Yeah.
Their art tells stories, connects them to the land.
So for them, art is essential.
Now, do you think that Van Gogh was essential?
To some people, absolutely, but I think it really boils down to taste.
You know, that he transformed it.
Artists are always having a dialogue with the past,
I like that, a dialogue with the past.
reinterpreting, reimagining, paying homage.
But when did that dialogue become plagiarism?
Yeah,
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
brings up the legal side of things.
Right, copyright law.
It's meant to protect artists' rights.
But what about art that's similar?
That's where fair use comes in.
Oh, yeah.
It lets you use some copyrighted stuff
Okay.
without asking permission. But the rules are super tricky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And they get trickier when money was involved.
It all gets so messy, right?
Back to Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Well, what would he make of all this, you know?
The fact that people are even debating his originality, yeah, he'd be floored.
Absolutely.
It's a crazy thought.
What was high art a century ago is not now.
Right, and the other way around, too.
And as you pointed out, David, sometimes sales decide it.
Right, so that means it all boils down to cultural values.
Yeah, and who gets to decide? Like museums.
Yeah, and art critic. Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, do you remember by any chance the art of a fountain by Marcel Duchamp in 1917? This famous is a famous example. Duchamp presents a common urinal sign with the synonym of art mood. Okay, so and people start saying that it was a piece of art. So what do you think about that?
Hey, David, that's a fantastic example.
Oh, yeah, Duchamp's fountain, the urinal.
What's fascinating here is it challenges everything.
Like what art even is.
Exactly. Is it about skill?
Or is it about the idea behind it?
That piece really shook things up.
It made people question all the gatekeepers.
Right, the museums, the critics,
And it's still being debated today.
which is kind of the point, isn't it?
Okay, so with that urinal, what do we think?
I think it brings us back to cultural values.
Oh, for sure.
Because back then it was outrageous.
And now,
Now it's in art history books.
right, high art is not what it was.
Is true originality even possible?
Or is that the wrong question?
To go back to what you were saying, David,
Yeah.
sometimes sales and cultural impact decide it.
And, you know, we talked about if art is necessary.
Yeah.
Duchamp would say absolutely.
What's fascinating here is that art has impact,
To make you think, feel, and question.
which is kind of the most original thing of all.
Absolutely.
Thanks for your thoughts, David.
Yeah, David, thanks for joining us today.
We always love hearing what you think.
We'll see you next time.
Take care, David.
Thanks for listening.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, no, don't go away, please. So, what's the point in this matter? I mean, then in the end, who is deciding who is art or not? I mean, is this podcast art? Can I say it is art or not?
Hey, David, we're not going anywhere.
That's a really insightful question.
Is this podcast art?
That brings us back to what is the point?
I mean, does art need to be like paintings?
Right. Is it about the medium or the message?
Yeah, I was like, are we gatekeepers now?
Because we have our own biases.
This is kind of a meta moment.
Right. This raises an important question about perspective.
So, is this podcast art?
Well, it sparks conversation.
And hopefully makes people think.
Like Duchamp's... yeah,
Or maybe it will be art when it reach 100 followers or 200 followers or 1,000 followers. So where's the line?
David, you're hitting on something really important.
Yeah, like, does the audience size change things?
If we connect it to cultural values, maybe it does.
Okay, so like, if more people listen, we have more impact.
Right, and more opinions to consider.
This brings us back to Fountain.
Right, because Duchamp wasn't thinking about follower.
He's just trying to shake things up.
Absolutely, but let's bring it back around. Is it art?
So you
yeah,
think so you think that art is only about impact people. Is that right?
Well, David, I think it's more nuanced than that.
You bring up cultural values.
Yeah, it's not just about numbers.
What is art after all?
Is it art? It is all up to you.
It's about the idea, right?
And we were talking about it earlier.
It's about challenging what we think.
I like your confidence in that answer.
Maybe we need to broaden our definition.
The important thing is that it sparks the conversation.
Right,
Remember Duchamp's fountain?
right. It was a test.
That's a great example of impact.
Absolutely.
So ultimately, it's up to you, David.
It brings us back to what is the point?
What do you think?
Maybe we should get back to that question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Go
so
on.
what's the point in art? What's the point in making
That's the
art?
$1 million question.
Yeah.
What is art?
If we connect it to what's original,
Oh, yeah. What's the point?
right? Is it to copy something? Exactly.
I personally think this podcast is art.
Totally.
And I don't know about you, David, but to me, it's essential.
Absolutely. And let's not forget those cultural values.
Yeah, we've been paying homage to art.
It's not always sales that decide it.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
So probably art it should be only for yourself. So the art is a creation that you make, but it's only for yourself.
David, that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, like art is a personal thing.
If we connect that to cultural values, maybe that's true for some.
So you're saying art doesn't need an audience.
It can be purely for the artist, you know?
Right. The act of creating itself is the point.
What's fascinating here is intention.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Is the artist trying to communicate something?
Or is it just like a personal expression?
It really depends on the artist.
We've been talking about impact a lot.
Right. But what if the impact is just on the artist?
That's a cool thought, David.
If we think back to Van Gogh,
Okay, yeah.
maybe he was creating art for himself.
Even though people are buying it now.
Absolutely.
So art should be only for yourselves.
What's the point? It's all up to you.
I personally think this podcast is art.
Totally.
And I don't know about you, David, but to me, it's essential.
Absolutely. And let's not forget those cultural values.
Yeah, we've been paying homage to art.
Right. It's not always sales that decide it.
And
Hey, yeah. What's up?
Yeah, but if you are an artist, how you are going to pay your bills if you don't sell your art, your pieces of art? You know what I mean? I mean, you need to have two jobs if you want to be an artist, but you have to pay your bills, and you are not selling anything at all about your pieces of art.
David, that's such a real concern.
yeah, we've been talking big ideas here.
But how do you survive?
Right, like how do you pay the rent?
What's fascinating here is the hustle.
Okay, unpack that a bit for us.
You know, artists often have day jobs.
Yeah, like Van Gogh.
Exactly.
He wasn't exactly living the high life.
Right. And that brings us back to intention.
Is the art for yourself or to sell?
It's a tough balance, isn't it?
It reminds me of the podcast.
We create the podcast for ourselves.
To have fun talking about interesting things.
Right. But we also hope you enjoy it.
It's a tricky balance, but so rewarding.
Right. Because we have to think about our biases.
Now, back to art needing to change how we see things.
Yes. And it also needs to have an impact.
Absolutely. And some people think a podcast can be art.
What's fascinating here is you may ask if it changes how we see things.
Absolutely.
We have some great thoughts today, David.
Yes, David, thanks for your...
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, the thing is that now art is a kind of investment, you know. So people just probably they don't appreciate it, but they know that some piece of art can have value, so they put some money, and it's like a big stone is getting bigger and bigger, you know. So that's the problem about art. They are not just saying that it's art, but it's getting a
David,
bit
you're
crazy.
touching on something huge.
Yeah, art as an investment.
If we connect that to our cultural values.
It's all tied together.
Right. So it's like a feedback loop.
People see the potential for profit,
Then they invest without even liking it.
and the value feels up even more.
But then it's like, is it really art?
If no one even cares about it.
Right. Maybe they're not paying homage to it.
So does art need to change how we see things? David, you're bringing up the whole commodification of art.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is the problem of investment.
Yeah, like is it about appreciation?
Or just about-
Oh, go for
Yeah,
it.
but if it really is this way, I would say some pieces of art is just a ripoff. You know what I mean? They're just nothing, just rubbish.
I get what you're saying, David.
Yeah, some stuff just doesn't connect, right?
Right. Maybe the artist is trying too hard to copy.
Or just phoning it in for a quick buck.
So what makes it rubbish, in your opinion?
Is it about the artist's intention?
Or just about the money?
Okay, let's unpack this a bit.
Right, because we have to think about our biases.
Yes, and it also needs to have an impact.
But is it original, though?
I mean, if it's just a ripoff,
Some may think a podcast can be art.
absolutely. We had some great thoughts today, David.
We touched on investment today.
It's a lot to digest.
We appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us.
Is it for yourself or is it about changing things?
The podcast is art.
Absolutely. We had some great thoughts tomorrow, David.
What's fascinating here is art needing to change how we see things. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, before you go, can you tell me which kind of art you like? Which kind of art do you enjoy yourself? Is that painting, sculpture?
Oh, that's a great question, David.
Yeah, what kind of art do we like?
Well, I'm drawn to art that makes me think.
Yeah, like challenges my assumptions.
Pieces that show biases.
I love art that's playful.
Right, and makes me see things in a new way. You know, like Duchamp's Counting.
Yeah, like we were saying.
Exactly.
David, what about you? What kind of art speaks to you?
It all comes back to if it speaks to you.
And now back to art need. Oh, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I like the art is made with your body, like ballet. I think ballet, people who are dancing ballet, is just really art because they are making performance, they are performing with their body, and that really appreciate it. So I like it very much that.
David, that's a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah, the body is a medium. That's cool.
If we think about intention, dancers communicate a lot.
Oh, for sure.
The whole point is to have an impact on you.
Right. But the investment in ballet is huge. Oh, back to our listener.
Yeah, and
What's up?
apart from that, you cannot possess this art. You know, you only can enjoy this art at this precise moment when they are doing the performance, but you cannot possess a piece of art, but just enjoy this dancing and all the ballet. So that's the main reason for that. You are there or not.
That's a really interesting point, David.
Yeah, it's so ephemeral, right?
If we think about art needing to have an impact,
Right.
ballet has a huge impact.
But it disappears as soon as it's done.
Right, it is a craft honed over a lifetime.
It only exists in that moment.
Maybe we should get back to that question.
The question of the point.
Art can change how you see the human form.
And that is the intention of dance, right?
It is not always sales that decide it.
It makes us consider our biases.
Some may think a podcast can be art,
Absolutely.
but what kind of art do you like?
What are your thoughts on the point?
You have given us so many great thoughts.
We love hearing your art perspective.
What's original for you?
You know, sometimes a podcast can be art.
Absolutely, we touched on the point.
Thanks for joining us today, David.
Always a pleasure to discuss art with you.
We'll catch you next time.
Take care, David.
Thanks for listening.
Considering art is always a great move.
Is it for yourself or is it about changing things?
Maybe that question is the point.
What's fascinating is art needing to change how we see things.
Yeah, it is not always about sales.
Or is it about changing things?
Maybe that question is the point.
Thanks for your insightful thoughts.
We always love hearing what you think.
We'll see you next time.
Take care, David.
Thanks for listening.
We appreciate you and your thoughts.
Thanks for joining us and chatting with us.
Thanks again for the insightful conversation.
I personally think this podcast is art.
We appreciate your time and input, David.
We hope to hear from you again soon.
Thank you.